Welcome everybody back to Brown and Browner, the post NCAA, post Masters edition, to say the least, along with a lot of other things, including the NBA playoffs just getting into high gear, the NHL playoffs kicking off this weekend. There's a lot of stuff going on. Society's got a lot of stuff going on. We can go into all sorts of tangents. But, you know, one of the things my colleague and I were just kicking off with is just how history, unfortunately, tends to repeat itself if it's not learned the right way, I think is the best way to put it.
Well, we were talking about it. Expose your warts. Don't put, you know what? And just for anybody out there, if someone's battering you and you get a black eye, don't put makeup on it and go back out there and not show that you're being that, because you'll never address the issue and it'll continue. If you don't do the right things to expose the ugliness that we all have inside, where no one's the ultimate beauty. We all have our warts. But if you just try to cover them up, then you'll never, ever get over things. And with American, we don't, and that was what I was saying earlier is, you know, Austrians were part of, you know, in World War II and what the Germans did, they were brought into that, right? Well, once that was over, the Austrian nation as a whole took it upon themselves, one, to protect one of the last Jewish temples that are in downtown Vienna. I've seen it, I've been there. They actually have 2 guards sitting there every day. Since that time, they teach in school the atrocities that went on during the war, what the Germans did, and all of the things. They don't cover it up. We cover up slavery. Have you heard anything about slavery in in history books? It's like blah 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 slavery, blah blah blah. Oh, and we would just keep on going. And America flourished because we were a great nation. They don't talk about what slavery did and what they did to people, and not just people who look like me. We're talking Asians. We're talking all sorts of people.
Yes.
But we never teach that. Matter of fact, we have laws in states like Florida that basically say it's okay not to teach that. So if we don't remember the past, we'll never have the brightest future. And if we don't talk about the things that were done in the past that were bad, then we're more likely to repeat those things than not.
And we're seeing it in society. We're seeing it, not to transition it over, but we're seeing the NFL draft, where honestly the same teams make the same mistakes over and over when it comes to drafting the wrong people, and they still haven't learned their lesson after decades and decades and decades of frivolity. So you know what?
Chicago Blackhawks.
I mean, not to even cross it over, the NBA last night, the Bulls, 3 straight losses to the Heat in the play-in game? I mean, how does that work?
I went out and met some friends I used to play football with, and sure, we were all talking. I forgot the game was at 7 or 6:30, and I'd worked till about close to that time. So then I headed over to the bar to meet them because I hadn't seen them in a while. By the time I got there, I was like, "Oh my God, it's already started." I'm sure. I just happened to turn my phone to the score. I thought it was wrong. I thought it was a joke because the score kept changing, and it was like, I don't know, 10, 12 points. And then all of a sudden it was like 20-something point lead by the Heat before halftime.
Like I said, some organizations just don't learn from their history, just like society doesn't learn from history, and things tend to repeat themselves in unfortunately bad ways. Society has more of an impact across all of us, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's true.
So we need to fix that as a society. You know, a quick PSA and shout out to the topic that we started with here. But going over to sports, we see the same failures over and over from the same franchises, over and over from the same owners, the same managers, and there's no accountability at the top. What can I say?
Well, I mean, and the funny thing is, of the 3 biggest cities where you potentially could say you've seen that, Los Angeles doesn't do that as much.
Nope.
But Chicago and New York, New York, you could take any of the sports in New York and in Chicago and go across all the ownerships, and it seems like it's like Groundhog Day. When were besides the Eli Manning years where they basically were coming in as wild cards and won the Super Bowl, what else have they done?
Well, I'll even put it akin to history. Okay.
Yeah.
When America was founded, and you have the British and everything else, everything started in the East. And there was I would call it perpetual cronyism that developed going east to west, if you think about it. So in the East, you had settlements from all sorts of various cultures and things that came across from the pond. And in those same pods, you had basically the elitists leading any of those major cities and things, and even cultural groups. I mean, some said like the Italian mob ruled New York for many years, maybe still does. I don't know. Philadelphia, same thing. DC's got its egalitarianism. Chicago still got its gangster history and everything else. But then as people moved west, during the gold rush and everything else, California was kind of seen as this, I don't know, epiphany, if you will, at that time, where it was kind of like, okay, it's open land. It's a little bit more of the Wild West. You can tolerate some of the flexibilities, and there's not as much quote unquote cronyism and ingrained influence and control that stays in power for so long in the wrong ways. So we're seeing that a little bit in sports. I kind of joke, because New York, it's still its old guard. You still got the same families, the same owner, same everything else. The Maras, the Steinbrenners, take your pick, whatever. Everything's the same. Nothing's changed culturally. In fact, those franchises haven't won in forever. Take your pick. Chicago, unfortunately, until you had superstars like a Jordan or something like that, nothing happened. With the Blackhawks,
Yep.
The Cubs got lucky for the 1 year, the White Sox got lucky for the 1 year, and
over 100 years. And you're right. Yeah. It's unfortunate, but the same leadership exists. And actually, the Sox won, luckily, with some kids that they didn't even think were going to finish fifth in their division.
Yep.
And the Cubs won because you had a blip of time where a new owner came in, or when Theo Epstein came in. My hats off to you.
Yeah.
And he changed the culture for a moment.
Yes.
But they didn't want to keep that going because in Chicago, it's like the owners don't want to invest money to be good. They just want to make money off of the teams. And that's to me, the opposite of what an owner should be. If you are in a position to own a franchise,
right,
it should be about making money, but that should just be inherent in conducting business because it's a franchise in the third largest market in the United States.
We're in an interesting era in sports with ownership because, yes, it used to be where the power and privilege of owning a team had a sense of pride and you wanted to obviously win. That has changed now where people that are rich enough can invest those billions of dollars into either A, buying those teams, but it's not for the team. It's for, hey, I'm going to buy up 30 acres of land around it, develop it, and create my empire.
Right.
Like the rich have, like anybody else has across the country. In fact, it's going to happen here in DC. It just got announced yesterday with the new ownership group, where Josh, I forget his last name all the time, guy from Philly. He owns the Commanders now. Bought him last year for whatever price he did. I think $6 billion, whatever it is. He's going to pump in $3 billion of his own dollars. Oh, sorry, $2.5 billion of the $3 billion needed to build the new stadium.
Wow.
Now, funny and irony enough, I was in DC with a family trip last week or 2 weeks ago. I drove by the old RFK Stadium, if you recall the old '80s RFK Stadium, where
that's what I grew up knowing was RFK. Yeah.
Yep. It is night and day. So we drove through kind of an alternative route, if you will, going into DC because of traffic and everything else. So we decided to go local. So we cut through the west side of DC. We drive literally into this corridor, and all of a sudden I see the stadium. I'm like, damn, I haven't seen RFK in forever. This one side of RFK, so coming from the east, covered in graffiti, looks like a war zone, almost looks like it came out of Eastern European war zone, like Belgrade's type stuff in Yugoslavia. Like horrible. You cross, so the way that it's almost like a highway, but it's not. It's a wide enough road, and then it splits around the stadium, and it comes back around, right, to get back into DC and then go into the Capitol and everything else. As you're going around, so as you're coming in from the east side of town, all ghetto, dilapidated, drug deals, God knows what else is going on, crack houses, God knows what else, right? You see the graffiti, everything else. As soon as you cross midway past that stadium on that Arc Drive, it's night and day. It's gentrified as hell. The entire other side of the stadium is clean. There's no graffiti. It's the Wild West. And of course, around this entire area, you've got the neighborhood that's like 10 blocks off, and then you got this big open expanse of land in RFK, and then you got Richie Richville, where probably the starting point of a townhouse is probably $2 million.
I love the Richie Rich reference.
Yeah.
For many of those who probably don't even know what that is.
Nah, believe me, there's probably an entire generation's worth of kids that don't even know what Richie Rich is.
Yeah, Richie Rich, that was the cartoon. And the comic book.
But that said, owners are going in and buying up these, properties or they're building from scratch, but they're wanting to build their empires and not necessarily invest in the actual team. The joke that's already started in DC is, okay, they're gonna, the owner's taking obviously the financial responsibility to build up this thing and everything else. It's not going to happen until 2030, so we're 5 years down the road. By then, Jalen Daniels might not even be your quarterback of the Commanders, so he'll probably go get his next paycheck somewhere else.
I wonder about that, but I would say for any of the Washington fans, first off, this is post Dan Snyder, and I can tell you it looks way better.
Way better.
The pre was what you said about the one side of the RFK Stadium. That's what Dan Snyder brought.
Dan Snyder side, seriously.
Yeah. So one, be happy that an owner is at least doing something different than what Dan Snyder did. I guess secondly, I would say this: unlike what you just mentioned and brought as a scenario, what's happening there, most owners tried, like they have here in Chicago, tried to leverage having that team and basically force the taxpayers' money to be given to build for them.
Yep.
So I'm going to give him credit for that too, because I sort of hate that part of it here, where you see that occurring and the city is just sort of, we got their handcuffs on going, we don't want to lose the Chicago Bears, so let's just bend over and take it. And yes, we'll give you tax dollars. Yes, we'll do all of this for you. And that's generally what people who are wealthy, that's usually how they operate. So I'm going to give that guy all the credit for putting his own money up. And then lastly, you might be right, but I think there's a different culture in Washington now. And I think that they're wise enough to see, like, I'll compare it to here. Daniels is a good kid, has a great head on his shoulders, sounds like he's a great teammate and a leader at a young age. That's something you keep for the long haul. And you don't do the Luka Doncic. You don't do the Nick in Dallas role where you give up a superstar and his youth because what he come into your office and he had a beer in his hand and burped in your face. And you're like, man, I can't take that disrespect. So I'm getting you out of here.
I mean, somewhat props given to Jane Daniels' mom for being Mama Bear over Juju, but that's a whole different thing.
That was hilarious. We talked about that. But honestly, I hope that they have built a relationship because right now, Juju could use that. You know what I'm saying? Because she's recovering and she had a really just an unfortunate event. But I have to say that Mama Bear, they should show her, like, that should be a meme all over the place. Like everybody turning her into a bear and her scratching like Juju because she stood right in between them and told them, I saw you on the Jumbotron. This ain't happening. Hell no. You can read her lips and see it.
I think we've talked about this before, where people, whether it's NBA, NFL, whatever sport it is, a lot of these rookies coming out from underprivileged areas don't know how to handle their money, don't know how to handle fame and everything else. Honestly, hey, quick little shout out to Jaden Daniels' mom. Maybe you should start a little circuit or a little like info type thing, or a class or whatever it is, for maybe all the new mama and papa bears, for all these kids that are coming out. You might teach them a thing or two here about controlling their kids.
I mean, and she could call it Mama Bear Inc., right?
Yeah. Oh, Mama, you get the branding. I'm good.
Yeah, she's got it. And we want a little bit of that. Now, if you take that name, we need to copyright that or whatever, patent that. But I have to say, I get where she's coming from. I get where parents come from, and I'd rather see a parent involved in that way than what you may generally see, where a parent doesn't do much. They let other people rob their kids blind while they're also putting their hands in their kids' pocket. So kudos to Mama Bear Daniels over there.
No, like I said, and like you just mentioned, I think that the Commanders are in great hands, great ownership, great possibility of keeping, Jaden Daniels, I think, for, forever, hopefully, and, everything else, building a franchise, building a model out there, which I think will be pretty cool, especially for a place that hasn't seen success in a little while. I think it'd be a great thing to see. And that'll honestly be something that every major city needs to start capitalizing, primarily the Bears, who need to learn from their mistakes of their ownership group of not realizing, hey, I could be building arguably the most popular franchise in the entire NFL, if not sports, if I handled it better.
Yeah, but they're just about the bottom line. There should be a rule. amongst all of these owners, and I know a lot of this is old school money, right? It's passed from family to family, generation to generation, and you get to generations that really don't care about football and know nothing about football, and they're just getting the bottom line, profit out of it.
Yep.
They should be looking at, as a whole, the NFL should look to clean this out.
Yep.
What is the image you're projecting now moving forward? Is it okay to be a loser in a big city market and not put any money in the team? Well, what about these smaller teams? Do they start doing the same thing?
Yep.
Then you have just a muddled product on the field, and you have 3 or 4 teams that are always going to be good, and then the rest of them are just sitting there hoping that they could make the playoffs. And you were talking about the Bulls and what's happened with the Miami Heat. It's similar to that. Teams that don't play for anything, you generally don't get better. You never get better because you're always in that top draft pick thing. You're never spending enough money to really make a great defense so you can bring in good quarterbacks and eventually they'll get a chance to grow, or offensive lines. Bears, you hearing all of this?
Yep.
I don't understand why the NFL allows that to happen. If I saw a crappy ownership, especially a big city market, I'd want to get them out and bring somebody in who's going to help stimulate that area and the NFL or the NBA or whatever professional entity you're talking about. So that's just my,
Now, the problem is we've come into an era where, unfortunately, money and greed are taking over some of the pride and ownership of sports. Case in point, like you just said, Bulls are a classic example of what happened last night. Mediocrity at its finest for way too long, to say the least. And not even mediocrity, failure at the end of the day. Let's face it, facts.
Exactly.
It's failure.
Exactly. You hit it right on the head. It's not even mediocrity.
Yeah. It's failure. Now, I'm going to transition it. Over the weekend, you may have heard a little story about Nico, Mr. NIL example of everything we've been talking about here the last couple of weeks about the NIL being a little bit problematic. Yeah, that's a situation where, guess what? Papa Bear, meaning Nico's daddy, decided to say, "Oh, I want to get the bag. I want to get everything." And guess what? You just blackballed your son basically at the cost of it. You shouldn't have been out there, talking to Dan Lanning out in Oregon, and Dan Lanning let the beans fly. And I'm glad he did, honestly.
Yeah, but again, it's exactly what we've been talking about and what NIL could represent. So,
no, I feel bad for the kid to some degree, but I mean, at the end of the day, you are also a product of your parents, and given how good and popular and the kid is and great it is and everything else, you got to sit your parents down and be like, "Hey, Dad, you're messing with my future," which he did. I mean, think about the scars from this. Kid comes into Tennessee, has a great season, says, "Okay, I want to renegotiate my contract." Okay, that's fine. You can do that within reason because that's the NIL these days.
Right.
Goes out there, tries to shop him around for $4 or $8 million. I can't even forget the number was. It was something astronomical, to say the least, and unheard of. Then you lose all loyalty. You already have a team culture that's building really well under Josh Heupel, in my opinion, in Tennessee. Something that hasn't been seen since the good old days of old Tennessee.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now you ruined it. Heupel says, "Yeah, you're not going to fit in our team culture. You're gone. We're not dealing with this. We'll go shop around in the portal for someone else." Great.
Right.
And they can easily get it. That's the thing. So kids have to realize there's a fine line in the NIL. Yeah, you're good. You're going to get your money's worth and everything else. But the minute you get greedy in a team sport, you're disposable.
Well, you get blackballed too. Who else?
The long-term repercussions are going to be even worse. This kid's image now gets hurt in the NFL draft.
That's right.
Yep.
Because he's only in it for the money.
Yep.
But I would have to say I would disagree with one part of it, or not disagree, but I think it would be hard to manage. Yeah. You're an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid, whatever, and your parents, especially if you got an overbearing father and maybe, the Tiger Woods father type, you think he's going to allow you to speak to him, to tell him what to do, or is he the one dictating what's going on?
I mean, we've seen it with LeVar Ball and everything else. I mean, we've seen these examples. And
when you said that about the parents, I thought immediately of the Ball family.
Yep.
Because I think they would have been better off if their father would have shut up.
I think so.
But who am I to tell, millionaires that they did the wrong thing? Let me get to be a millionaire, and then maybe I could actually
you gotta give credit where credit's due. LeVar Ball was right. Yeah, his 3 kids have some gifts. We knew that.
And he marketed them, and he got them to be, where they are today. Just like, no different from Tiger Woods' dad being the Papa Bear controlling things.
As much as I'm always against like the helicopter parent mentality, at the same time, you're looking out for the best interest of your kid. So I'd rather have that situation than the other one where some people don't even have parents that help them and things of that nature. So
yeah, and they never achieve their own greatness, because most of those helicopter parents, as badly as we may speak of them,
right,
they produce the Tiger Woods. They produce these extreme athletes. Maybe not a Michael Jordan. I think he might have been a product of himself. But many of these other, child prodigies and people that we've seen now who have excelled beyond the historic, careers before them, they were the product of these parents who were hovering over them, who basically mapped out their day. And maybe they were sorry as a kid. Some may have enjoyed it. Many maybe have not have enjoyed it. But to get to where they are today, they probably enjoy where they are today. So, kudos to those parents that love their kids so much. And maybe they step out of bounds once in a while, but end up producing those, I guess, amazing people that the world have come to love and respect. And
credit's got to be given for the effort at the end of the day. The effort is beyond compare. You can't take that away from any parent at the end of the day, and that's what's huge. It's the effort. Yeah. I mean, it can cross lines, whatever. That's something you learn over time. That's something you fix over time. But the effort, it's hard to find that sometimes. So, appreciation given when it is.
My father didn't do a gosh darn thing for him. May he rest in peace. I wish that I would have had somebody with the talents I had,
right,
that would have cared enough. My mom was working her butt off, and my father was, he was who he was. Who knows what I could have become? Who knows? There are millions of, athletes and people who, not even just athletes, but people who could achieve the greatness within themselves. We all have some type of greatness. We all have a skill that sometimes never gets realized, or the potential of that never gets realized, because you don't have that support. You don't have somebody behind you, pushing you, directing you, helping you see the greatness within yourself.
Yep.
So, I'd rather have somebody who cared a lot about me than someone who didn't care at all.
Well, think about how many kids are out there that they kind of represent that same story as you, where you've got this great potential, size, physicality, mental skill, whatever it is, and you just don't get the chance to let it shine because you never have been either afforded the opportunity, either by someone outside, or your own parents weren't there to push you into that or help you get there in some fashion. And
boy,
that's
you'll never amount to anything. How many of
Yeah.
these kids have heard that kind of stuff because they're in an impoverished situation and the parents can't see beyond their own selves that the purpose of their lives, once you have a kid, should be the focus of that kid and to give them more than what you have, to make them better than you.
Exactly.
At least that's how I see it. That's my opinion.
No. I think both of us have always shared this opinion across this platform all the time. It's the fact that we want to see the next generation better. Doesn't matter if it's your own kids, somebody else's kids, whatever it is. We want to see the next generation better. So you know what? Do better. That's all we ask. Do better. Try hard.
Do better.
Yeah.
Do better. And everyone should want that. It hurts my heart that someone could have a child and then put that child second to themselves.
Right.
That hurts me because you brought them into this world and it's your responsibility, and you should take ownership of that responsibility to give that child the best opportunity to be the best them they can be. And if you're not doing that as a parent, then you're failing, because that's what a parent's supposed to do. That's why we have some of these kids walking around today who don't have a thought in their head, and others who don't have a care in the world. And not that not having a care in the world isn't great, but what I mean is they don't care about their fellow man. They don't even care about themselves. They don't value their own lives, so they have no value for your life.
Yep. No, and that's frankly the perfect segue back into the sports world. Look at Deion. Deion, I would say, is a model father in that respect, where he's helped his kids get every opportunity of every way. Now, some of us who are in the fandom world will say that, hey, is Shedeur Sanders really worth a number 1 or a number 5 pick? No, I don't know. And my opinion is that, yeah, he's probably not one of the greatest players in the draft. I don't think this draft class is really that good as a whole. But
I wonder about that. I have a similar thought.
Yeah, you're picking from mediocrity. Now, interesting twist, and I'll bring this up just really quick before we draft and go into another topic. Shedeur Sanders, supposedly, and Travis Hunter, deservedly, are going to be retired. They're going to have their jerseys retired at Colorado. I'd like to give you a stat. I believe they were 18 and 13 in the years that they played at Colorado, and did whatever they did, to whatever degree, as you are well aware from public notoriety. I'm sorry, but I believe I saw a meme over the weekend. Tim Tebow hasn't even been retired at Florida. Dude won 2 natties.
Hello. See, this is where I think we're watering down the idea of what greatness is.
Yes.
How is that great that you went and had a mediocre record in a 2-year span? Come on, man. Come on, man. That's true. That's a thing.
On that meme, it's real. They're literally going to be retiring both their jerseys at spring practice in the next week or two at Colorado. And I'm sitting there like, my response to the meme was like participation trophy. That's all I wrote because that's really what it is. That's seriously what it is.
That's what it is. You showed up. Let's give you a trophy. Seriously. And I'm sorry, just to be real, how many alumni and Colorado-based fans truly like those players or even Deion?
I'm sorry, but Rashaan Salam's turning in his grave after playing in Colorado.
I was about to say, what about the Rashaan Salams and the Michael Westbrooks? What about those former players who actually did some great things?
Seriously.
That's sad.
Cordell Stewart transformed the game.
I mean, did he not?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that historic pass to Michael Westbrook. I mean, or what was it, Michael Westbrook? Westbrook was his last name.
It was Westbrook, but there's been like 3 or 4 great Westbrooks.
Yeah. But I mean, that's iconic in Colorado history. And you're going to tell me these kids came in for a cup of coffee and didn't even really make a major bowl, barely finished with over a 500 record during their time there, and they are going to retire their jerseys. Recognition, what do you call it? Not a recognition trophy. What's it called again?
Participation?
Yeah, participation trophy. How can that even be a thought? Is Deion like basically, leveraging him now being the coach there for a long period of time and said, in order to keep me here, I want you to retire my kids' numbers?
I mean,
but going back to what we talked about, I get it as a parent.
Sure.
I think that part's absurd, though. They shouldn't retire that.
Like I said, there's a line crossed.
Yeah, that's you're a habitual line crosser. Oh, that's horrible.
That's like going back to the NFL draft. Yeah, I feel like it's one of the weakest I've seen in modern time. There's probably less than a handful of players that I would worthily name off, even by name right now, that I would consider top 5 draft picks, and the rest of it just whatever. Maybe I'm going to be proven wrong in history. Hopefully so. But think about this: we used to have the NCAA tournament end, women's and men's, right, for basketball. We had the NFL NBA playoff starting with the NHL playoff starting, and all these other major media outlets and sports are all sitting there talking NFL draft, NFL draft, NFL draft.
Constantly.
Why? Now, I'll say why. It's the dollars. I'm sorry, but the NFL is the most
NFL.
Yeah.
The NFL is sort of like what you see in college. What runs the college world? The college dollar. It is the football program, and it funds all of the other programs. The NFL is a must watch, and and the beauty of the NFL is it's only 17 weeks, 18 weeks, so it's truncated, so it adds more value because you're not diluting it with 162 games like baseball. So people pay attention. People care about the draft, even when the draft is going to suck because you got Cam Waters, the #1 quarterback, and then what?
Well, exactly. The poor kid out of Idaho is not getting any press. The running back, Gaston Janty, and I'm like,
I think that's wrong.
Freaking FPL record, and even got the respect of Barry Sanders, and he ain't getting shit.
And I don't understand that. I mean, I get the why, but I don't agree with it because Saquon Barkley has shown you that running backs have a true value in the NFL, but it's like there's this movement, and it's been like this for the last, I want to say, decade, where they're trying to push the idea of what the running back represents and the value of that out of the door. Are you kidding me? Any of your quarterbacks, if all you got is a passing game and you don't have like a fucking fortified front line, you're going to get your quarterbacks killed.
Yep. If anything, there's probably a hidden value here in the draft, probably for offensive linemen and defensive linemen that I haven't paid attention to personally, but I'm sure there's out there. But as far as the skill positions go, wide receiver, running back, quarterback, I'm not impressed by anything that's sitting on the table. Travis Hunter, maybe. But again, Travis Hunter, you haven't figured out his role yet.
Well, he's trying to say that he's going to retire if he doesn't play both sides of the ball. Come on, man. Somebody's gassing you up, and I think it's Deion, somebody. But the other part of that is this. Maybe it's me, but when I played my little ball that I played, I was one of the bigger guys there, at 260, 270, because that was a long time ago. Yep. These guys are huge now, huge. Exactly. And you got guys that are 260 playing linebacker, and they're running 4.4s.
Yep.
So Travis Hunter, with his wispy-ass body, yeah, that's different when you're the best guy on the field in college.
Right.
Then when you get to the pros, that's why only a handful or 1% or whatever that number is makes it to that pro level. Now everybody's like you. Everybody is as fast as you.
On that same note, I'm going to share this and see if we can get this clear enough. Hold up. Let me see if I can back it up or put it clearer. Let me add. Okay. So yeah. So okay, I'll read it off real quick. So another meme, and this is along the same time as what you just mentioned with size and everything else. The White House doctor released the results of Donald Trump's physical exam this weekend, which reports him at 6'3" and 224. For reference, NFL wide receiver DK Metcalf is 6'3" and 230.
Yeah, throw the bodies next to each other.
Yeah. Let me see if I can get this. It's priceless to watch, but I mean, you can kind of see a reflection.
I can see only because I see it now. I see it a little bit better.
I see DK Metcalf, and then you see Donald Trump, and then you see. Yeah.
But see, now that's hilarious, and Metcalf is a specimen. But that's what we're talking about. Look at how he looks.
Yes.
And look at how Hunter looks, and tell me he's going to be able to withstand a 17-game season, getting hit across the middle, getting hit on blocking plays. How is he going to hold up? And the same goes for Shedeur. Shedeur is a wispy young, guy too. And again, that works in college because if you're fast,
if you're quicker than everybody else, you can burn past half your college crowd. Exactly.
Yeah. But everybody else is catching up now because you're going to get into the pros and you're not going to outrun the people. So are you going to last? And that was something I was thinking about when we talked about this draft and their value. It's like, unless you got a really good front line in front of Shedeur, he's going to get killed. And unless Travis is running flies all the time or go routes where he's not going to really worry anything more of just catching the ball, let him try those moves he did against BYU or whatever team.
Yeah, exactly.
Where he catches the ball and then goes through the middle. They're going to blast him up. He's going to look like the 4th of July with all of the Roman candles, highlights and everything when they hit him.
Broken bones.
True.
So
we shall see.
But no. Yeah, like I said, NFL draft, everybody in the world's talking about it. I think we're gonna table that discussion until after the draft at this point, because I don't know if it's really worth even discussing all the, 5 guys or 4 guys that might be even a potential, game changers for any franchise. We know the needs. We'll discuss maybe the needs of every team, our key teams at least. My colleague here has already mentioned what the Bears need. We know that. We know that the Chiefs need a front line because it's old, aged, and decrepit, and you got to protect your assets at this point. So you got to protect Patrick Mahomes and everything else. They need defense. We know that. So I think it's pretty simple. They're going to get back to fundamentals. I think with both franchises, honestly, I think the Bears in the same boat. They need a front line and on both sides of the ball. Maybe they need a couple more playmakers at the linebacker and the corner position for the Bears. The offense just hasn't shown up. It's got talent. We know that on paper.
Yeah. The talent is there on paper. The hope is you got the right artist
Offensive,
is creating the right picture. An artist
that's
meaning
the
the
big
coach,
problem.
because that's been the problem with the Bears forever. At least in Kansas City, you got Andy Reid. Andy Reid has been known. He may not have been a winner in Philly, but he got you there. He got you at least an opportunity. He made, the McNabbs and such look good.
I would say you got Donovan McNabb and Terrell Owens to coexist. I mean, think about that. Man deserves a Medal of Honor for that alone.
I'm sorry. Like, if I had Terrell Owens on my team, about the third time he'd open his mouth, I'd run to wherever his locker is and pull the Homer Simpson on, like, why you little.
He's that guy that cost franchises championships. It's sad. Now, I'm gonna make a side pivot from that. So you get the NBA playoffs here kicking off. Interestingly enough, oddly, and I think we alluded to this on our last time, there's been a lot of coaching firings in the NBA for teams that are in the playoffs. Funny enough, you got the Memphis, you got the Nuggets, you got this, that, and the other.
Yeah. How do these coaches get fired when they're actually doing something good?
Yep.
Especially Denver. Like, how does Malone lose his job? You're just a couple years away from winning a championship. You're a perennial contender.
Yep.
Your teams are putting up, winning 50-plus games every year, and you're fired?
You're fired? I don't understand that one. I don't even understand how. Like, I'll put a converse exception. The Bucks. Yeah, okay, I get that Dame Lillard's got his issues and stuff like that, but I'm sorry, but Doc Rivers, you can't coach. We already know this from your previous jobs. How is he not fired?
You know what? I don't disagree. How is Doc Rivers not fired and you're firing these other guys who've actually won something and done something?
That one still puzzles me.
I mean, are these coaches being fired because they don't have the chemistry with the top player on their team? Like, what is causing this?
I mean, I'm sorry, but I can still picture Malone and Jokic hanging out on a horse farm. I mean, I don't see a problem there. I don't see him hanging out with Jamal Murray. I don't get it.
I don't either. And again, you got a coach who's a winner. He's gone to the top and won. He was able to sit and give you the 10 Commandments, or what was that joke from the History of the World where it was 15 and he dropped one?
Exactly.
One of the tablets, so it became 10.
Hey, Chicago Bulls, maybe that whole, the Billy Donovan thing isn't working out. I think you need to go after Mike Malone.
That is hilarious because we were talking after the game, and, some fans are just sort of steadfast. I don't care what happens. I am a fan. And I'm not. I'm sorry. I'm a realist. And like with the Bears, the same thing with the Bulls. I mean, besides the fact they need to fire Jerry Reinsdorf needs to sell the team. He's the biggest problem. And I'll say this again. He ruined the Jordan. They could have won 10 championships. When you have your little bulldog crowds going around saying it's not players that win championships, it's organizations, and you back that stuff, come on, man. You didn't do anything except put a pen on a piece of paper. These are the guys who are winning your championships. But with the Bulls, I'm just not. I don't know. I just don't think they try to win. They don't want to win.
Think about how many star players that are now playing for other franchises, funny enough, have walked through the door in the last 10 years through the Bulls. Think about that. I mean, I'm talking about, since the time that we had Rose and Joakim and honestly had a chance then, but honestly, the problem there was honestly a little bit of the coaching because they just overworked
Thibodeau.
Thibodeau don't know.
You don't know. He would have the starters play 40 minutes apiece.
I love how the Knicks have bought into Thibodeau, not knowing that he's going to work everybody in that team like a dog.
Well, they're starting to see that now, and they're even talking about that. And the thing you were saying about Billy Donovan when we were talking last night, Billy had a great college career. He won championships. He's got that name. But I'm sorry, it hasn't translated into pros. I mean, was he at Oklahoma City? I think he did a little something there or whatever.
He was.
But he's doing nothing with the Bulls. Maybe part of that isn't all him because if you look at their overall roster, the Bulls roster sucks. And they lost LaVine and they played a little okay. But look at what LaVine, who won the game? I think they lost anyway. But LaVine and DeRozan were on the team.
Right.
And you couldn't put enough players around them to get them to win.
Seriously, exactly. Yep.
And then you let DeRozan go and you thought LaVine was going to be your top dog, which I think it was reversed. DeRozan's better than LaVine.
Yep.
But it's like we haven't built that winning culture. Even after Derrick Rose and we won a little bit, it's like the Bulls gave up on trying to win. Donovan is not the right coach. They should have Mark Malone, just like you said, but they're not trying to do those things.
I don't see why Mike Malone wouldn't be a top contender for any job in the NBA. It's just ridiculous.
I don't know. Is that some kind of collusion, blackballing thing, or what?
Something. Okay, so let's go into the NBA playoff picture really quick and see if we can make maybe some quick picks here. So we'll start with the East because I think it's honestly the weakest conference because the West is harder pick.
Right.
So we know the Bulls lost; they're done. So now we're looking at a play-in game between the Heat and the Hawks. Now, the Hawks looked horrible too the other night against the Magic, which I expected. But then Trae Young had a little hissy fit. Apparently, got kicked out of the game too.
Yeah.
You
know. Trey tried to have a little something with the refs. I don't know. They were getting their ass.
The winner of this game between the Heat and the Hawks is in for a sweep in the first round anyway, so I could care less.
Exactly.
The Cleveland Cavaliers have rebuilt their entire franchise, which is awesome. I love to see it. They're the great number one seed in the East.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they're necessarily going to win the East. I'll get to that in a second. But but the winner will play the Cavs. I mean, I could care less. I'd like to see Tyler Hero because I just want to see Hero try to play a Hero.
The boy was balling last night, and the guys in the bar, some of them didn't know he was. It's like, this is a Kentucky boy. Do you remember when he was in college? He was doing this stuff in college.
That's right.
People forgot that because Jimmy Buckets wanted to be the focal point of the offense.
And see, that's what I loved about Jimmy Buckets the other night. So we'll get to that playing game in a second. But Jimmy, he's figured out his role on that team.
I hope so. I love it. I don't trust him. You know his track record and how he's sort of run himself out of every franchise he's been in. I think he's playing the role right now, but let's see what happens next year.
He put up a humble 38. Think about that.
I mean, and it's exactly what they need. I think they have the right, cohesion as far as the team. Like, Steph can get some breathers now because Jimmy can hold it up. They play two different styles of game, one inside, one outside. But we know Jimmy's always happy. He was happy in Miami. He was happy in Chicago. He was happy in Minnesota. He was happy in Philadelphia until he wasn't.
Well, but commonly between all those threads and the fact that he wasn't, playoff Himmy.
Well, that's why he's got that nickname, right?
Playoff Himmy shows up when it counts.
Yeah, it does. And I agree with you. To go back to the East, I mean, looking at the Cavaliers, while I love upsets, I just still don't see the Heat beating them in a series. I think the most interesting series, because I think the same with Boston. I'm sorry, the Orlando's not going to do anything with Boston.
No, that's sweet.
Don't even talk about that. But I think the interesting series are the 3-6 matchup because Detroit, this ain't Joe Mama's Detroit team. Since the Bad Boys, they've sucked. But boy, Cunningham has made them something.
They got their hard work, like the fact that they're deep. And you know what? The Knicks are ripe for a little bit of more of an upset because you know what? It is majestic to play at the Garden during playoff season. Don't get me wrong. They'll get a game out of it. I'm going Pistons in 7.
I'm going Pistons in 6, actually.
Yeah,
I think, and please don't let anything happen to Brunson because if he goes down, it's over.
It's over.
I'm sorry, the Knicks are the Knicks, and they're another one of these franchises in a big city market that gives you a little bit of a hope and always disappoints. Way back to Patrick. Matter of fact, they haven't won a championship since Phil Jackson was playing for him, and Bill Bradley, the senator, played for him, and that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? So
Willis Reed days. Yeah,
exactly. That was the last time they won a championship. That was the 70s, y'all. The beginning of the 70s.
We talk about the Knicks like we talk about the Bears. It's been 85 and 74. Let's take that into consideration for a second.
That's horrible. And these are big city teams, and these are teams that have actually had the talent.
Yep.
They tried to goon it up when they were playing under Riley back in the Jordan years. I excuse Patrick Ewing for not winning because nobody won when Jordan played except for when he didn't play and Olajuwon got a chance to get his rings.
That's right.
So I don't blame you for that. But what's happened since then?
Yeah, that's true. Sam Cassell doesn't become Sam Cassell unless Jordan leaves.
Yeah, that's it. You're right. Because Jordan doesn't leave, he wins those two as well. And basically the whole 90s, all of the 90s are the Bulls.
Yep.
they would have won 8 to 10 championships. They're only 10 years in a decade.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
They'd have been like Boston was back in the 60s when they seemed to win every championship.
Yep, very true. Yeah, the 4-5 matchup in the East. Now that's the interesting one. So the Pacers and the Bucks. Bucks have to play without Damian Lillard because still got the blood clot thing going on. Unfortunately, I think the Pacers are going to beat the Bucks on this one because Halliburton and the boys, they're balling. They know how to
They
ball.
are balling. They got the potential, but I remember Halliburton sort of choking it up last year a little bit.
True.
So I think I'm still going to go. I'm going to go with Giannis. I'm going to go with Giannis, even though they're down a man. I'm going to go with Giannis on that one. I'm not sold 100% on Halliburton and the team. Giannis has been there, and at the end of the day, who can really stop Giannis if he really wants to just take the ball and make it his game?
He is the one unstoppable force, other than maybe Jokic, in the league. Those two stand on their own, in my opinion. There's nobody else that can guard him, phase him, nothing.
Nothing.
Too
Curry
physical.
is sort of right at that level too, where you put him one-on-one.
One step, you're done. Yeah,
you're done. Because you're chasing your shadow because he might go to the hole, so you're worried about that. And then as soon as he gets this much room, he's going to pop up a three because he's got that quick release. So I think that I feel like the Bucks are going to win that one.
So then we got the winner of that.
Don't forget you owe me a lunch.
That's right. I do, and I will. Now, the winner of that game plays into the Cavs. I think the Cavs take that next one maybe in 6, I want to say, regardless of whether it's the Pacers or the Bucks.
I would agree with that. The Cavs are solid. They've shown it all year. I think what do you think about, let's say Detroit beats the New York Knicks?
Then I think Celtics roll. I think Celtics roll all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals at this point. They're clicking on every cylinder. Porzingis is healthy. I mean, there's not much stopping the Celtics right now from getting the Eastern Conference Championship. The matchup against the Cavs intrigues me, even though a lot of pundits are saying the Celtics should get it just by virtue of having the experience. The depth on that Cavs team is unreal.
It's gotten better, and with Mobley playing the way he's been and a few other players, I agree. Garland, they match up. They do match up. I just don't see them beating the Celtics in a 7-game series.
It's tough to beat the experience. And fact of the matter is, Brown and Tatum, they're the dynamic duo. They are Batman and Robin. Let's face facts.
Well, and you still got Horford, who he contributes his thing. The fact that they got Porzingis, because he was playing the injured role when he was in Dallas and all of that stuff, and then they end up getting him, and look at how he's playing.
They got playoff Porzingis.
Well, so they had Brown and Tatum. They got Porzingis, and they got Milwaukee's best defender.
Exactly.
And you still got White out there too, who can hit some threes, play some defense. It's hard to go against them with Cleveland. Cleveland's just getting there, and Donovan Mitchell hasn't shown me. What's that?
They're getting Kevin Pritchard to hit 8 threes in a game, for God's sake. That's how deep they're playing.
That's how deep they're playing. This guy is like the 8th man, but he plays like the 6th man, whatever. I just can't see them. I can't. Donovan Mitchell's track record, I felt like he had an opportunity when he was in Utah, right?
Yeah.
What happened? I just don't see him being that winner he's not that leader that does what it takes to get your team over the hump. That's just me.
Good, but not great. Yeah, no, I don't disagree. So I think we got a consensus on Boston coming out of the East. Let's go to the West here. So we know what the Warriors already did. So the Warriors now feed into the Rockets, which is going to be a great matchup on a 2-7.
That's going to be a great matchup.
Warriors, I know the seeding's there for the Rockets. Well deserved, all that, great team. But you know what? You're talking about playoff Hemi. You're talking about Steph Curry. You're talking about an experienced squad, and now you got Pajewski and the rest of those cats are all playing their role. They figured out how to play. That's the most dangerous 7 seed I've seen in a long time. I'm going Warriors in 6 on that one.
That's funny you say that. And a stat that I had heard is that they're the second time, I guess, in however many years, 30, 40 years, that a 2 seed was not favored over a 7 seed.
Yeah, how wild is that?
And Golden State was actually a minus 200. Houston's a plus 170. That's sort of weird, being the second seed in the conference. Houston, I don't think is a fluke.
They're not.
I don't think they're a fluke. I do think there's some validity to the idea that if you don't have experience, You have to cut your teeth. You have to get your experience first before you win. Now, some people have done, things out there that heck, the Fox won in 2006 with the boys that nobody knew. So you never know. But I'm sort of with you. I think the history, the experience, the know-how, the understanding how to play under pressure, all of that comes with Jimmy Buckets and with Steph and Steve Kerr. I'm sorry, Steve Kerr is an Olympic coach who's also won on the NBA level. Guy knows how to handle those situations. We shall see.
Coach. I don't think we've talked about him enough circles. He's a top 10 historic coach. There's no question.
Yeah. So I think that we got to give them the props there. I would take Golden State, but I'd say 7 games because remember, they're not the home seed, and Houston can ball. Don't think Houston can't ball. They can ball, baby. And they got Dylan, who came over from the Memphis Grizzlies. I think he gave them a little toughness too.
He did. Absolutely. So, he ends up being an interesting matchup nightmare for Jimmy and for Steph. But the fact that you got Jimmy and Steph, that's what makes it the X factor for me, basically. You got 2 guys that can put up a spot.
You know what could bring could be the factor in this? Believe it or not, Draymond Green. If Draymond Green acts a fool and gets stupid and does dumb things like he's known to do, he could cost him games. But if he just plays the Draymond where he scores his 6 points, he gets, 10, 12 rebounds. Look, there's a nuisance on defense. They should be able to win this.
To me, he cost him a title. He cost him a title. He did.
What, kick LeBron in the nuts title or which one?
Kick him in the nuts title. Yeah.
Because that was when they came back from down 3-1. Is that it?
Yeah. That's the one.
Yep.
That's the one.
So I think he's going to be the X factor in this, believe it or not.
Yep.
All right, who else do we got?
We'll go to the easy one. So OKC is going to play the winner of Memphis and
Dallas.
What you call it? Yeah. I mean,
Dallas beat Sacramento last night.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas, I think we still got to figure out how they're going to work all those pieces around Anthony Davis and everything. They're still kind of a work in progress, in my opinion. Not enough to beat OKC. OKC's 12 deep. No question.
Neither one of those teams are going to be OKC. As great as John Morant can be.
As long as I don't have to watch John Morant do this in the playoffs, I'm good.
Well, now he's throwing grenades, right? Did you see the last one where he did this, threw it out in the crowd, and went like that?
Grenade? Yeah. This dude's like Yosemite Sam on fire right now.
You know what it is, and I don't know. I get it. I think part of any entertainment is the show aspect of it, right? We appreciate their skills and the greatness that they show and being able to do this, but it's the show too, having a personality. So I'm not condemning him for having a personality and doing what he's doing. It's just, in my opinion, it's sort of poor taste because of his track record.
His track record. If any other situation, it's great, but yes.
Yeah, but for him, going it's like, dude, man, do you not remember that you first were given a break for bringing gun around because you're stupid like that, and then you went and did it again because you're trying to impress the homies versus make your 200 million? You idiot.
Exactly.
John could have been the next Michael Jordan or something like that. I hate that phrasing. He could have been the next superstar that was spectacular.
So here's the perfect counterpoint to what we talked about at the top of this. Now you got a dad that's active. T. Morant sitting there right there courtside every single game.
But they're not teaching their son the right things.
No. That ain't working out. Let's go to the 4-5 matchup. Nuggets and Clips. This one's good. You got the Kawhi boys. You got Jokic and the boys. This is a good matchup.
Well, and Kawhi is back. Kawhi shows up every couple of years after he's gotten his money for his injuries. He sits around and does nothing. But he's back. And with Harden,
George, you got Harden. You got a lot of players there.
Yeah. This might be a tough out for Denver. Plus, I'm not sure how healthy Jamal Murray truly is.
That's the problem, I think. Jamal Murray is not healthy. They're having to lean on their 6 men, which, by the way, Christian Braun, shout out, unbelievable season.
He playing. Yeah. Yep.
But I think at the end of the day, because the Clippers are playing in hot right now, I think the Clippers take this series.
I could sort of see that too.
Yeah.
I'm an underdog better just normally, but I feel like they're on the same level. The only thing that could stop, in my opinion, the Clippers from winning is who.
The Joker.
Because if he's throwing up that 30-point triple-double at him, I don't know how they're going to beat them. Because Jokic not only can score, but he can facilitate very well. And if he can get his other players in there and you get Gordon and a few others to score, 15, 20 points.
You get Gordon and Porter putting up 15 and 20, you're over. Lights out.
And that's the thing, right? So if Jamal Murray is healthy enough to play through all of the games, I can see Denver winning. But I'm with you. I'm going to go with the Clippers on this one just because Kawhi is hot. Harden looks like he's, getting better again. Maybe he lost some weight.
I mean, admittedly, I don't watch much of the regular season. I don't care to watch much of the regular season. I know the Clippers got their fabulous new arena. This is going to be the first time hosting a playoff game. Steve Ballmer is going to be going ape shit on the sideline as he always does.
I love him. Two of my favorite owners are in the NBA are him and Mark Cuban because show their emotions. They're there. They're not sitting in the owner's deck, sitting back like Jerry Jones. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like they're in it, and you could see that they want to win. They spend money like they want to win. I love those two owners.
Yep. So that'll be fun there.
I think this is the biggest to me.
Yes.
It's not the Nuggets Clippers. It's this one.
It's the Lakers and Ant-Man.
Everybody's saying the Lakers are great. I'm sorry, they had a nice little spurt there when they first got Luka, but when they need to play defense, who's going to play defense?
I'm seeing a dirty series here. I think it's gonna go 6 or 7. I don't know which way to pick yet because it's gonna get interesting. Ant-Man's gonna do his Ant-Man thing. LeBron's gonna have to show up. He's not gonna play second fiddle. He's gonna have to show up. Same with Luka. And I want to see where the rest of the character players in the Lakers show up as well. But then you got little thorns in the side with the Timberwolves. You got a Gobert who can get under people's skin at times, which I'm not the biggest fan of. But he can get under people's skin, so he's there.
He does.
So then they got role players there too in Minnesota. So it's gonna be interesting to see where this matchup goes. I think Lakers will probably still triumph in like 6, but it's gonna be a good series.
It's funny that last year I felt like Minnesota was one of the better defensive squads that were in the playoffs. I don't feel like that this year. I'm not sure why, but I don't feel like that this year. Ant-Man has been if and Andy. He can be great, but there have been times I've seen him be rather pedestrian in his play. I still feel like the Lakers are overrated. I'm sorry.
Absolutely are still overrated. Absolutely. I think it's because of all media coverage, everything else. That's the reason they get the hype. They haven't proved it to me against a lot of the other teams that we just mentioned. There's no question. Now, quick side note, if the Lakers really want to take this series really quick, all you do is go get all of Ant-Man's baby mamas and kids, line them up courts, all in a bench.
And just line them up there like Sean Kemp, who used to be the father of fathering. Sean Kemp was the father of fathering in the NBA.
You fly out every baby mama and their kid and put them courtside at the Staples Center.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Oh, and have you seen the commercial he's in? It's some kind of, it's about, I think it's an Adidas commercial, but he gets into a car, must like be after a game. And he's, I guess, was sad because maybe he lost. And then they're playing some music. And then he starts singing. And I'm like, oh, my God, don't ever sing again. You sound like shit.
Yep. Really awkward marketing campaign.
They should just play that on the Jumbotron in the stadium. They should just play that. Just the part where he starts singing and saying, you can't be a winner if you sound like this.
You control the Ant-Man for days. Now, credit given to Ant-Man for what did he do? He paid off his entire child support in a lump sum.
Did he really?
Yeah. So
that's the thing. Hey, at least he did it. Most of those guys are, just deadbeat dads, even though they got millions of dollars.
Yeah, he decided. I don't know whether it was an accountant or whatever it was, gave him his advice. He's like, you know what? You got all the money, just pay it up front. So he paid 18 years of child support up front.
Hey, at least that cuts the cord, right? You no longer have to be associated with it.
Oh, and that's exactly what the agreement was. It's like, you're done. Watch.
Think about it. If every professional athlete that had multiple children did that then I think they would have gotten rid of a lot of dead weight. They would have made themselves look better because they actually would have honored that. And if you think about it just from a time and money perspective, they're getting the value of their dollar because they're paying it today for 18 years from now. And inflation is going to make the dollar, your value of your dollar shrink.
Yep.
So, do that, baby. Do it.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, most of these players think that their money's going to last them forever, right?
Yep.
But they don't realize that their careers could be shortened at any point, and they're not extremely long to begin with. So unless you're going to do something like Shaq, where you got like 18 gigs after you finish playing, you're not making those millions of dollars anymore. So how are you going to pay your child support and other expenses?
Yep. Hey, Tyreek, I'm taking a little page out of Mr. Ant-Man's book. You guys are at the same pace right now, from what I can tell.
Yeah, it's I'm with you. I think Minnesota can win this. I'm not sure they will. I think that if you get Austin going, and that's that side piece with Luka and LeBron, if one of them are a little off and Austin's throwing up 30, they're going to win regardless of the
scary part. You get Austin Reeves moving, and then you got a third cog in the wheel, so it makes it even tough. The only thing that really makes, like I said, because the Timberwolves don't have a true front court game, like if they had a Jokic, I would love this series. But
because Gobert is not that.
Yeah, Rudy COVID Gobert is not going to cover it.
Yeah, not at all.
So no, we're going Lakers there now.
Wait, one question before we change this. Minnesota made a trade where they got Randall for Anthony Towns, right?
Yep.
How come that doesn't make them better?
I don't think it does. I've never bought into Julius Randle personally, both in college and in this pros. I just haven't.
Agreed.
I think it would have been better for them to keep Cat. Honestly, when are you going to find a big man that can shoot threes in the NBA? You can't. So I think he got rid of
Randle tries to do that, and he's not successful at it.
And he's not as big as Cat. That's the other thing. So I mean, that trade didn't really make sense to me. It fits for the Knicks because the Knicks needed that piece and they needed to get rid of Randall. So the Knicks won that trade, in my opinion.
I would agree. I don't think it helped either team, though.
Right. I don't think it helped them in the grand scheme. Well, the problem with the Knicks now is you're still coached by Mr. Workhorse Thibodeau, so that's your problem.
It's unfortunate. He's a regular season coach, and they used to say that a long time ago when he was coaching the Bulls. He's a regular season coach. He doesn't get his team in the right mindset or physical shape to play a playoff series or to win a championship. He just doesn't.
How many minutes on the court? Think about how many times Jalen Brunson's put in like a 40 or 45-minute game. Seriously, like it's just wild.
And I don't think you need to do that. Some of them games, it's nice when you're up 10 or 15 to sit somebody, let them get a breather. Yeah, okay, maybe you lose some points, maybe you don't. But if you're just wearing your guys out, what are they going to do when it comes this time of year? You play the regular season for this. Yep. And they're going to be worn out.
Yep. Now, that said, we'll stick with the bottom half. So, Lakers-Warriors potential in the Western Conference semifinals.
I would love to see that.
I'd love to see that. That's a ratings bonanza.
Yeah.
I will tune in for every game.
Who wins that game?
It's tough. Right now, if you ask me today, I'm going Warriors, and here's why. They're coming in as the hotter team. Everything is clicking for them, and they figured out the positions, which I think was their biggest struggle after they got the Jimmy trade done. Well, it was a struggle. Let me take that back. They've been the second best team by record since the All-Star break. Quick presser right there. So to that said, Steve Kerr's figured out where each piece needs to go and when. And the reason that, and because of that, I think that's why they come over the Lakers, because the Lakers have not gotten that, nor do they have that centerpiece in the middle to take over a game. They got Luka and LeBron, but that's it. And
also, don't let either one of them get cold, because if they get cold, what's going to happen? And like you said, they don't have that middle. They don't have the. I think Anthony Davis. No, he's not, and he's not a true defender. Anthony Davis was, and I feel like that's been the threat, like with the Warriors and what I've seen with the Warriors. Jimmy can take it to the hole on anybody, and if you don't have anybody who can guard the rim, he's going to get his 30 points. And then you got the guys shooting from the outside getting 30 points.
Yeah.
I actually would pick the Golden State Warriors in that series.
Yep. So I'm liking the Warriors' chances going as a 7 seed walking into potentially the Western Conference Finals. Other side, I think we had OKC as a consensus coming out of the first round. Then they got to play the winner of the Denver Clippers series. That'll be a good series, but I'm picking OKC.
I'm sorry, you don't win as many games. Shea Kool-Aid, that dude is killing them.
Yep, Shea and the Chet and all those boys, they know how to play as a team. That's the interesting part. That is a team. They got a bunch of dogs out there.
And I think the experience from last year, it goes back to that, you haven't had the experience, you're young, and sort of what we're saying about Houston. I think that experience last year helped them a lot.
Well, they added a couple good pieces there too. That's the other thing. Like they added some playoff pieces in. So I think they're gonna be legit as a team. Absolutely.
I don't really see anybody beating them going to the championship. I don't care if it's the Lakers, the Wolves, the Rockets, the Warriors. I don't see anybody beating them. I hate to say it, but it's going to be pretty much Boston against OKC. That's what I see.
I like it. I think it's Boston and OKC. If Celtics continue playing the way they do, I think the Celtics beat the OKC Thunder only on experience. Only on experience. If it turns into a grinded out series, I like OKC.
Maybe, but I still feel like Boston has the overall depth. They have the right kind of style of play where you can get an Al Horford 20 points in a game because he lines up on the three and he's going to get these open shots as you rotate the ball. Now, if they shoot the threes poorly, it's been shown this year, they lose. So
we'll get Al Horford. But Al Horford got to shoot over a Chet Holmgren holding a hand at 9 feet.
True. And I think he's one of the reasons why they're much better this year, too.
Yes.
We'll see. But can they hold? So let's say that let's say that Tatum and Shea, Jason and Shea are a wash.
Yep.
Who's a wash with Brown?
True. Dort.
Not quite like Brown, though.
Not quite. He's not a Brown. Yeah. It's not what Brown could do for you, like here, but
Yeah. And again, you got the D that White brings.
Yep.
He also can get you 20 out of nowhere. He can get you 3. I just feel like Boston overall just have a little bit. They have more weapons and they have the know-how because they are the defending champs, right?
I agree. Nope, that makes sense. Now, like I said, I think we're looking at another Celtics championship, for better or worse.
Boo! Hate the Celtics.
Of course.
Hate them.
But credit given to Jason Tatum, credit given to Jaylen Brown, that whole crew. That's a hell of a team they got there. And honestly, bigger credit from my perspective goes to their general manager and their VP of operations, who came from Butler. By the way,
Butler. Remember when Butler was good and he was coaching them?
And he parlayed that into a successful NBA career. That's what's pretty cool.
And I'll give them another thing. After having that scandal, and it's funny because the coach of Houston was the guy who used to be the coach of, he used to be the coach of the Boston Celtics before they started to win. He was their coach, and they had that scandal where he was, doing a little, touchy, funny with a coworker.
He cheats on Nia Long.
I don't know, man. You got to be stupid. Especially, I don't even get it. People at this level, there was only one person that I can think of, and maybe there are more and I just don't know it, that was able to manipulate the media in a way that they could get away with that, and that was Michael Jordan. Because Michael Jordan was cheating on Juanita. And I heard some stories back then when it was happening.
He was given a pass, but you know what? Why he was given a pass? Because social media didn't exist as much.
And that's my point. Today, you have more cameras. You got more everything. Yeah. People know who you are. You got the next door neighbor trying to videotape you and put you on TikTok. There's no way that you're going to get away with that. So why try?
Social media is what killed that. I wouldn't call it privacy. That shroud that people didn't see sometimes. That's the bad part. I mean, I hate to say it, but think about the light that's come of like even Dennis Rodman these days. So Dennis Rodman went through the 80s, 90s, prolific player. We knew his antics off the court, obviously, and to whatever degree they were publicized in the 90s and the 2000s because of the way they were. But who knew Trinity Rodman existed?
Oh, I did.
Okay.
I followed Dennis Rodman. One of the bad things that he did was he had this child, and then he really wasn't a father to that child.
Right.
You know, and plus, I know the Dennis Rodman story. Watched the 30 for 30 on Dennis Rodman, all of that stuff. I have to say that I'm so happy for her to be able to live her life, even though she's a Rodman. She established herself in anonymity. She did it in anonymity. It wasn't her name. It wasn't this. And kudos to her mom for being there for her and raising her child with, despite some of the things that didn't occur from the father's side. So it reminds me of my mom, because my father wasn't really a father, and I have the utmost respect for her and the battles that she fought for me to get me to where I am and to make me the man that I am. So,
nope, respect given there for sure. But no, like I said, social media has changed the game for a lot of these pro players off the court. I mean, hell, would we know about Ant-Man's antics in a non-social media world? Probably not. We wouldn't know about a lot of these guys if it wasn't for social media.
Well, what about Ja Morant? Would he have ever been? Did that have ever been exposed that he's walking around with?
Well,
that goes back to what we've talked about before, and an idea that I had a long time ago when we used to be in the office, where the agents need an agent's agent. They need to have that person be part of the entourage of the $1 million athlete that they're representing, to be that person on the other shoulder, because the devil always pops up. Hey, let's go out, let's go do this, let's go do that. They need to have somebody like you or I standing there going, look, why don't you just bring the party to your house? Don't go out. Don't do this, don't do that. This is a job. Forget your guns, because it's going to cost you $200 million. Make your $200 million first, and then you can do all the guns crap you want. That's
everyone needs a Shohei interpreter without the gambling problem.
Exactly. Because you're looking out for the best interest of the money. You're protecting the money. And I've only seen a couple of athletes that have been able to protect their brand. And one of them is still playing today into his 40s, and that's LeBron. How many bad things have you heard about LeBron other than some teammate tried to have sex with his mother or something?
Well, and again, that was this whole messed up thing. That dude, I forgot his name.
Remember Devontae something?
Yeah, Delonte West.
Yes, Delonte. There you go. Yeah.
Think about that core of kids that came out of Akron. Pretty special to think. I mean, that story is going to be told someday, I'm sure. Him, Ron, Rich Paul, and the whole crew. It's impressive to see that they've all protected each other.
And that's it. And they've all walked the line that they needed to walk to ensure that they were protecting each other. Nobody deviated and did something stupid that brings everything down. They all walked the line together, and look at what they've become. They became billionaires. They opened up business. They created brands. So I give them all the credit in the world. But many of the other athletes go the way of Ja Morant and T.O. and others who tarnish their brand. You see, what's his name? Johnson is coming back now. Ocho Cinco. You see him in commercials and stuff. But how long has it been? And remember, he was a star receiver that basically got blackballed because
Ocho got timed out. Yep.
Yeah.
He got canceled for a while.
Yeah. Same with T.O. T.O. should have been playing ball, but because of their attitudes, people didn't want them to be around. Hello, Antonio Brown. So I think if you had somebody that buffer in between who were friendly enough with that athlete to where they trusted them, then you might be able to help them make a lot more money and extend their careers.
I think about the number of dollars that are floating around the world today in the sports world. And, agents make whatever it is, 10%. I don't even know what the number is nowadays, but let's just pretend it's 10% of whatever contract it is. You would literally just fund maybe 1% to get a guy protecting around and going around your client, right? If you think about it, to protect this asset.
Yeah.
It wouldn't take much. A couple $100,000 a year. Somebody would gladly follow some sports figure around.
Yeah, I'll hang around with the sports figure and be in these swanky places and do all that stuff. Protect them from the paparazzi. I'd do it for a couple $100,000 a year. No, maybe more. No, see, I would run the concept. So no, I'd hire somebody and pay them that. You would be paying me, tens of millions of dollars to
We
create
did
that
that
for
with
you.
an LLC. It's called Brown and Brown Consulting.
There you go. We can make this work. Expansion, baby.
We're hiring now for astute bodyguards and things of this nature. Yes.
Hey, on that note, if you want to call in and look to get a job to help us with this concept, we're happy
Yes,
to
sir.
get a call from you. You can call
Absolutely.
888-888-8888.
Yes. Indeed. On that note, we'll call it a day for today, but we'll be back with some bigger topics, including the NFL draft and the needs of some teams potentially, and where we're getting the progress of the NBA playoffs, along with the NHL and a few other things going on right now. And we'll even lead in a little bit of talk about the golf season. We missed that today, but Rory, congratulations. Huge Masters tournament, huge Masters win, respect given. That was impressive to watch, but you almost choked it.
You almost choked it and you recovered. Justin Rose, kudos to you for coming back after a horrendous third round and actually passing everybody up on the board, putting pressure on Rory. DeChambeau, shame on you for giving us hope and then falling apart like
DeChambeau lost to Rochambeau, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, he was no shampoo. That's what they should have called him. And one last thing, since we're talking about golf and signing off here. There was a horrible video that I was sent about a Monday night altercation, a Monday night golf league altercation. I think it happened in Canada, where this guy literally, you know, and I've been the person, I golf is about rhythm. I hate to wait. But when you're in a league, that happens. When you're golfing, that happens. All I do is get a little frustrated and then I sit, smoke a cigarette or have a drink or whatever it is. It doesn't need to come down to violence. They're talking about a Monday night sport, and this guy broke this guy's jaw. He was, you know, pushing his wife and all of this stuff, and nobody helped. We should not be a nation of violence. We should be a nation of compassion and understanding. And yes, you can be frustrated, but it doesn't mean that everything needs to become a physical altercation because you don't like something.
You're out here enjoying a sport and doing leisure time, if you will, and you're telling me that you can't wait an extra 5 minutes at a tee while you're supposed to be relaxing and enjoying something you have the privilege of paying and playing, by the way, and you somehow get tipped off enough to where you're assaulting someone for physical harm just because they're playing a little slow or whatever it is. And
yeah, he really beat this guy up. He just kept beating on him and nobody was helping. And his friends were sort of justifying his actions as opposed to trying to be the ones breaking this up, saying, yo, Bob, we know you. Come on, stop. This isn't right. They were just sort of like, go ahead, just get. And he did a lot. It was just, it was disgusting. It was disgusting to watch this. And again, this is golf. You're playing golf.
Golf at a leisurely time. It's just it's sad. It's sad that we've come to that point in society where something that bad could happen.
Well, it's like that's where people are, and unfortunately, I've lost a lot of faith in the people in the world around me because we are being represented by people who encourage this type of bullying, and people feel empowered to say and do things that aren't showing that we are a civilized race of people.
Exactly. Yep. There are rules, laws, and regulations that exist so that people can exist in society in a cohesive manner. But then there's also the humanity side of things, which is what we try to bring light to. Be human at the end of the day. Be respectful of humankind. Be respectful and be understanding of the fact that we are privileged to be here, to say the least.
Yeah. And be humble. And right, sometimes you're going to get frustrated, but you need to be a little more tolerant. We need to be able to, you know, show that we have an ability to suppress urges like that. That's what separates us from the animals.
Exactly. So true. With that said, on that somber note, we don't mean to end somber, but we will pick this right back up this week. Or next week, and we'll let you know.
That's right. And let's be well, enjoy yourselves, and remember, we're a race of people and we should respect each other to bring out the best in what we represent as a society, not the other way around.
Yes, sir. Couldn't agree anymore. On that note, Brown and Browner, we'll be back.
All right. Be well.
guys.
Thank you.